We are live. It's showtime, Nana Malaya. Hello, everyone. I'm Jeanette Lenoir, and this is another edition of EPA Live. Thank you so much for joining us. We have the incomparable, the amazing, the fantastic dancing diplomat, Nana Malaya, joining us today. What a treat. I'm so excited. I'm very excited. Nana Malaya, welcome, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Yes, well, thank you and so much for the invitation. And also thank you for an opportunity to share, especially on this fabulous Women's History Month.
That's right. It is Women's History Month, and that is exactly the topic that we'll be talking about the role of women, sisterhood, and how it's changing. So we'll get all into that. We'll also talk about your own work, because I know you do a lot of healing work in the community. I've had the pleasure of attending your Kwanzaa event at the Kofa Cafe. So that was really very fantastic. What a great learning experience that was. You really contribute such a great deal into our community, especially the Black community here in Washington, D.C.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I'm honored to be a part. And it is such a really enriching community because it's so international. You and I were sharing our backgrounds family-wise. And so just there's so many people here. The embassies are here. People have come to Washington, D.C. for so many different reasons that it's really a really great place to spend time. And there's a really great, wonderful camaraderie and sisterhood that's developed here. And I work with several that are really, really tremendous in terms of supporting me and encouraging me as well.
Well, Nana Malaya, you come from a long line of women who have started the sisterhood. As we know it today, the sisterhood has certainly grown, and so a part of the video that we'll watch, we'll talk about that and see a little bit how important the sisterhood is, especially in this day and age. So, without further ado, I will we'll go right into our video and then we'll talk a little bit more about your work.
It's our family.
Take your arms to your right. Hi, I'm Nana Malaya. I'm back with the Spirit of Wellness. We had a series of dance and movement classes, and we just got finished with an African Roots African dance class that I led to quite a number of people. We had a large crowd. We participated with Hashim, one of our drummers, and Brother Kumbo, and we rocked the house. You got to be sure to join us for the next festival and our Spirit of Wellness classes. Come on out, get your groove on, get your African aerobics in.
So I'll stop it here for a second. So before we go into your event that is happening tomorrow, tell us a little bit about the work that you do.
Well, you know what? First, I want to introduce myself as Nana Malaya, Nana Enun, sometimes said to be one who speaks in parables, and yes, the dancing diplomat. I also have the name of Queen Mother Manto Etunde. I was able to connect with my Cameroonian roots that I did not know about, and so I was crowned a Queen Mother, and I'm very proud of that as well. But my mother, Mary Wilhelmina Brown Ray from New York City, and my father, Ebenezer Ray, whose roots are traced not only to Barbados, the flag, but also to Ghana, West Africa. And I say that because I come from a very strong lineage on my mother and my father's side, and the women are very strong. My mother was a very wonderful, inspirational person. She encouraged me throughout my life. And the other women in our family and extended have also been very much a part of that. So I just wanted to make sure to give props because it's important. I use the phrase, we're seeds. So you got to make sure where you plant yourself.
That's right. That's right. Well, you've certainly planted yourself beautifully and in such a way that it bears fruit for others. And that's one of the reasons why I have great admiration and respect for you. And that is uniquely an African cultural mark or identity, is that we are very communal in our humanity. And you certainly are an exemplary example of that. So I thank you for caring for the tribe as you do. So,
yeah, the nation is not going to survive without us being able to take care of each other. And that proverb that says, it takes a village, it really does.
Certainly. And it really also took the hands of women. So your role as a woman is also very important. You're having an event tomorrow that that we can talk about. What would you like people to know? I know this is somewhat of a touchy subject for some, but grief is something that many of us experience in one way or another.
Before I move into that, I just want to share that my life work has been primarily through the arts. I give the story that I came out of my mom dancing on the steps of a hospital. And so I work in the arts. I studied all forms of dance, drama. I'm also a visual artist and was able to have private arts lessons, music lessons, piano lessons, and all those things really contribute to who I am and the work that I'm doing. I was, at the time that I was growing up, I had an interest in ballet. And I studied with a ballet company, actually a Russian ballet company based at the time in Pennsylvania. And I mention all this because people as brown as I am were not encouraged to go into ballet. And a woman by the name of Catherine Dunham actually had gained a lot of fame and fortune. And she actually came to this ballet camp. And I was the only brown child in there. And she came in with her understanding of Haitian dance and rituals. I didn't know at the time that she was also a priest in the Haitian traditions, and she was also learning about traditional dance. So I say that I studied the flowers, which is the dance, and then I went to study the root of what people are dancing about. And that's why I call myself the Dancing Diplomat. Actually, I was named the Dancing Diplomat when I made a trip actually to Cuba many, many years ago. International Circle of Artists, people from all over the world. It's even bigger than the Olympics in terms of people and where they're from and the pageantry and the sharing. And then the understanding that dance can combine people, because even if you don't know the words, you can follow along on the dance. And all that is one of the things that brought me that dance is healing. I've been initiated into the tradition of the Akan, which comes from Ghana. And many of those activities and dancing is very much a part of most of worship ceremonies around the world. So tomorrow we're having a special, it's called Good Grief, Release the Grief, because there's been a lot of grief in the world. Grief in terms of people having lost a lot of folks in the last few years, especially, but not only the loss of life, but also the loss of lifestyle, the loss of income for some people. There's been the loss of so many things, including sometimes the loss of peace of mind. Every time we hear in the news, whether we hear it from someone, there's been another tragic event, or unfortunately some of the mass shootings. And even though we personally may not have been affected by losing someone, those things I know I grieve about, because I grieve for humanity as well. And so this activity tomorrow is to have people come out. And if folks are familiar with New Orleans, they go into a funeral and they kind of go in with their heads down, kind of sad. But by the time they come out, they've celebrated the person. We're going to celebrate life, and we're going to come out dancing and partying. So we have prayers, of course, and meditation, but we also have dancing. We're going to dance. We have a DJ. We're going to use uplifting dance and movements. And we are also going to laugh. You know, we're going to do some laughing yoga. We've got a couple appropriate comedians. We're going to do some writing, all the things to be able to release the grief, because we don't need to walk around with it. And there's plenty of folks who will tell you in the wellness community that when you hold on to grief, it can make you ill. So there's many stages. So we need to be able to come and literally sometimes just shake it out, get it out. And I think the larger community of which we are living in doesn't always encourage us to release our grief. So we want folks to come. You don't have to be sad. You don't have to have lost someone. And at the same time, if you have lost someone recently and you want to come, we will have appropriate ministers and counselors available to assist people. But at the same time, we just really want to come and literally make each other feel good.
I lost my mom not too long ago, a little over a year ago. It feels like it was yesterday. So I might stop by and, shake some of my grief off, because losing one's mother has been soul shaking, to say the least.
Yes, absolutely. Those parents and children. And I lost a child a number of years ago now, but it's one of the reasons why I encourage people to make sure they do positive and active things to move through the grief, because the grief is going to come and go. We never know what's coming up. Nobody expected just have everything stop, 3 years ago. I mean, absolutely, it was like, can't go anywhere, can't do anything. I was, there's grief in that. So just having things abruptly taken away. And now as we're starting to regain time with family, regain time with fellowship, regain, different, fun activities and rituals that we can now share in together. So how many people did not have a chance for a gathering and a funeral? So, so we're going to manage all those things in a very positive and productive way.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It's it certainly is a process that I think everybody has their own grieving ritual, whatever they need to do to feel better. But I really love what you're talking about here, which is about really being technical about it and really going about it as a course of study and working your way through it, because there really are valleys and peaks of grief and different emotions that people go through.
And I'm one of those folks, I apologize for cutting you off, to help guide people through that, because I know we've had a lot of loss, especially in our community, especially with police violence. A lot of mothers who've lost children to other heartaches, whether it's an accident or it's an illness. Those are very, very difficult things. So I'm one of the practitioners that'll be available, because I'm here to assist people, and they can come to the event, but they can also get in touch with me, before and after as well, to facilitate that, because it's a process. And I just remind everybody, there's a proverb that says, death ends a life, but not a relationship. And so nurturing that relationship, some of the things that you want to keep about that person. At the same time, there might be feelings that need to be released to be able to continue to move and still keep them in your heart. So we'll be doing all those things, because as long as you talk about them, they're still here. There might be some funny stories that we'll share, and some other experiences as well. And for those that just want to come and observe, they can do that. You won't be forced to participate in any aspect. If you just want to be in the space at that time, which will be a wonderful time. So we'll be there starting at 1:00 tomorrow. It's a partnership with my ministry, which is called Nubian Ministry, and I'm partnering with the Covenant Christian community, and we're using Seekers Church in Tacoma Park at 276 Carroll Street. And for those that know the area, it's right across from Busboys and Poets in Tacoma, not too far from that metro station. So it's easy to get to, whether you drive or want to come on your own. And we'll be there sharing and, I would say having a good time,
Yeah.
It sounds strange, but I was like, we're going to celebrate grief. And there's a song that often is sung, walk him up, walk her up the stairs, push her up, push her up, push her up the stairs. And those are the songs that we have had that have been used in our celebrations. So we recognize we're celebrating a life, and at the same time, if you believe that they're going to a higher power, to be back with the higher power, to heaven, or however your belief system, most folks do believe that the spirit should be encouraged to be well, and we want to be well within us, and we want those who have passed. And like I said, there's a lot of other stuff to grieve. Every time they talk about having another war, I'm like, grieving again. I'm like, heaven no.
So, on top of the current wars that are underway, we have plenty of fires burning across the world, not just in Ukraine, but Haiti is going through their own issues, and plenty of other countries as well. So
absolutely,
I want to give you my condolences for the loss of one of your child. But I also would like to, which I did in the video, that you also are a celebrity mom. You have a famous son, Lamman Rucker, who's been in plenty of Tyler Perry movies, among other movies. And so, if you like, how do you feel about that? It's, I'm sure.
Well, I'm very happy. I'm proud of all my children, and shout out to everybody, to Lamman, Chana, Embalia, my godchildren, my grandchildren. I have great grandchildren as well. So, shout out to them as well. We come from a strong lineage of women. We work together, and at the same time, even everything you impart in your children, it's up to them to actualize it in their life, to utilize those skills, and to gain more skills. So my first husband and I were dancers and actors and musicians together. And so as we developed and started having children in our family, literally, my children grew up backstage. So they could have chosen something else, but it's hard. My youngest daughter, Embalia, is also a dancer, and she works in the field. My granddaughter, Jasmine, is also, Faye Monet is also a dancer. And she has a little one named Echo, another little firecracker, and she's already exhibiting her skills as a dancer. So dance is a language to communicate. And so I think it's a very powerful one that I've seen the arts be a way that helps not only soothe, which is what we'll be doing throughout the use of arts. Because when you see a show, a dance performance, a play, listen to music that you like, it all has a healing effect, And so we want to continue to just always promote that, because art has saved lots of lives.
Absolutely. And women have saved lots of lives. And this is a perfect time to get into our topics. So I'd like to play a video and go into what we are discussing, which is and how it's evolved. I want to stop here for a second. I want to to show you hear this part. It was just about women's place.
We are the fairest sex, called a lot of things over the last 100 years. Ladies, dames, broads, chicks, but we prefer gals. Gals are the type who can powder their nose as they kick a few butts. Janes who ain't afraid to pull up their sleeves, dive in and break a few nails to get the job done right. This is our story and I'm sticking to it.
Women have always been central to the creation of social movements and have been able to find a unique voice for themselves in spaces that did not always want to acknowledge their power. Black women were present in so many important moments in American history. As speakers and orators in the antebellum period, spies and soldiers in the Civil War, and as anti-lynching crusaders. The Black women's club movement isn't always talked about in a lot of our public discourse. But I think it's time we give these women their due. Plessy v. Ferguson ushered in the Jim Crow era, and many states took advantage of the Supreme Court's decision that made separate but equal the law of the land. This is important to note because a lot of times we think of Jim Crow as something that occurred in the 1950s and 1960s. But
I want to stop it right here just to I just want to bring not just your attention, but our viewers' attention to see the different experiences of women in this country. So you saw how white women were being portrayed or what was expected of them, while at the other side, women around the same time, Black women were fighting for survival, not just for themselves, but for their husbands and for their children. And so when we talk about the role of women, we have to be very specific because we're not all the same and we haven't had the same experiences on this journey. So I just wanted to stop there, make a note of it, and I'll continue.
Jim Crow was thriving decades before that, and it dominated the South's social and political climate. And while Jim Crow perpetuated a lot of violence against Black people in general, there was a specific sort of violence that it inflicted against Black women. As a warning, this episode will contain mentions of physical and sexual assault. Because Black people had largely been stripped of their civil rights and did not receive the sort of protection from the state that to citizens, subjected to lynchings and other types of mob violence. Black women specifically were constantly dehumanized, threatened, and other forms of abuse. American culture justified this violence against Black women by portraying them as prostitutes, thieves, just generally. So even though Black women were because society depicted them in a hypersexualized, immoral way, they were seen as having brought it upon themselves. But Black women refused to stand for this. In an effort to protect their families and themselves, the Black Women's Club movement was started. It was a direct response to much of the violence and oppression that Black women were being subjected to. Though it's worth noting that this movement was, in many ways, an extension of a longer history of Black women's activism as orators, writers, abolitionists, and suffragists. The clubs were mainly grassroots organizations of middle-class Black women who were one generation removed from slavery. They were well-educated and had their own careers and identities separate from their husbands, many of whom were lawyers, doctors, judges, journalists, and politicians. And many of these women decided not to marry at all, but to focus on their political work and careers. What made the work of these organizations different from some others that existed at the same time is that members of Black women's clubs believed that advocating for Black Americans was not just about obtaining civil and political rights for Black men, but also winning those same rights for Black women.
When I am in a room, and no matter what I am talking about with a person, that person, my trans between us, it's always there, and I can't hide it, and I can't pretend like this person doesn't perceive my transness, because it just exists with me at all times. So no matter what I want to talk about, and I do not want to only talk about trans things, but it is who I am, and it is what I believe in.
So as you can see, we've come a long way.
We've come a long way, baby. Remember that phrase?
That's right. That's right. Virginia Slim cigarettes, right?
Yes,
We've come a long way, baby.
And at the
as you can
same
see,
time, look at things trying to be reversed, so that's a challenge as well. But women, and particularly women of color, Black women, have always had many roles. So even as, of course, nurturers and carers and educators, I mean, we still have also been warriors, business women, entrepreneurs. And so this goes all the way back to the beginning of civilizations as well. So I think to embrace it all is important. I also want to mention that however people are getting around, they may not know that the GPS was designed by a woman of African descent. Dr. Gladys West created the GPS. So every time you get in your car and you turn it on, recognize that fact and glory in that wonderful revelation. And it's something that we're not spoken about. I like to bring up positive things like the dime. If you don't have a dollar, you've got a dime. And if you look at the dime, and the carving of Roosevelt on that dime was done by a woman of African descent, Dr. Selma Burke, a wonderful woman who I had the pleasure to work with. But most folks wouldn't know that something you hold in your hand, questionably quite a number of dimes, not knowing that that carving was done by a woman of African descent. And that was not only a great skill, but an esteemed honor. And so giving rise and energy and letting people know about that is important. And even people like Rosa Parks, who oftentimes was portrayed as just a tired old sister who wanted to sit down, find out she had been an activist her entire life, her and her husband. So recognizing that power and the full story and presentation of who we are, including the Woman King, the movie that came out to recognize that women have been warriors in many situations out of necessity. And that's still true to this day. So we're going to cover the gamut of skills, and blissfully, we're in careers now that when I was younger was harder to get into. Being a doctor and a dentist, a lawyer. Oftentimes Black person, especially women, we're talking about, well, you can't do that. Maybe you can just be a teacher, and that's the highest you should attain for. Now we've got CEOs and astronauts and pilots and, airlines run by women entirely. So we definitely are continuing to expand and change the game because we're just brilliant and remarkable like that. And we'll continue to be so. And I think it's important to have circles of women. I'm blessed in my family to have very strong family connections with the men and women. Even my quote unquote celebrity son that you mentioned, Lamman Rucker, is married to a fabulous, strong, powerful woman. Hey, Kelly. And they have a beautiful child now, 2 years old. And it's important that we recognize that it literally does take a village. So you can't have the women not being nurtured. You can't have the men not being nurtured. You can't have the men and women not being educated. You can't have the men and women not being healed. So everything from housing to healthcare, all those things are important. And we just need to make sure that everyone's taken care of. And I just stress that if you don't have a village, start creating your own. Look for the people, take your time. If your family is not near you, if you're not close to your family, physically or emotionally, then develop your own family, create your own village. Look for those people that will support you, encourage you, that will lift you up and help you when you're down. Because we'll all have some of those times, because that's just, a part of life.
What are your thoughts on even women are being identified now? I think even to identify a woman, like the question, what is a woman, has become very political. Our first Black Supreme Court Justice, Ketanji Brown Jackson, could not answer that question because it is politically motivated, obviously. But what are your thoughts on the gender debate and how that impacts women? Are we still in a traditional women role, or are we competing with trans men who say they're women? We have Prime Minister Trudeau saying tweeting trans women are women, and so forth. What are your thoughts on those debates and so forth? I think one of the videos that I played earlier was of a trans person, and the way she was speaking, excuse me, was she was saying that their transness is always evident. They can't hide it away. It's always.
Well, let me say this. I think it's a area that has a lot of confusion in it naturally, as well as from a spiritual standpoint. I think the aspect of women that's understood to be the nurturer is, I think, the energy that the earth and societies need. Not that all women are nurturers. Some are better at it than others. Some may not consider themselves good nurturers at all. But I think the earth and the energy needs more caring. And I think that caring comes through feminine energy. And I think that, for me, I think that might be one of the reasons why we get this manifestation of feminine energy in people whose bodies may not have been born, which I would say defined, we've got bodies with vaginas and penises. Vagina is a female, penis is a male. And for those who feel differently, even though their bodies are saying something else, like I said, I think some of it's because the world needs a lot of loving, a lot of caring. And I think the most important thing is to respect one another. I do have challenges because I am a dancer, I am an athlete, and I do have challenges with people who were born in a male body. The physicality and the hormones and things that develop muscularly are generally different. And so to have men and women competing, let's say, quote unquote, on the same team as women, as opposed to competing with men who, gender identification are, I think those are some of the things that are confusing. Letting children know at 3, 4, and 5 that they don't have to define themselves. I think that's a miseducation and misrepresentation, And I think too often what has happened is what I see is people are trying to get away from whatever the stereotype was for the gender they were born in. They don't want to be that stereotype. Whether it was men, they don't want to be super macho. And if it's women, they might not want to be, very, very, quote unquote, sexual, And I think there's a rebellion against that. And I think the rebellion has pushed the envelope wide. And you know how they say a pendulum is swung real wide in one direction. I think it's going to come back in the middle. And I think people would be comfortable with who they are, because I see myself born as a Black woman. And I think I'm really proud to be Black, and I'm proud to be a woman. I'm glad this is the body that I'm in. And I'm glad that I can choose to do a lot of different things in this body as a woman. And I wouldn't give that up for anything. And I really want to encourage people to be proud and strong in the body that they were given.
Do you think it's important to protect that space? Is that space one just for biological women, or should that space that you just identified also include trans women?
Well, everyone needs to be protected.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the most important thing. So there needs to be a safe space for whomever people are and however they represent themselves. So I know there's been a lot of hate crimes and things like that. But people talk about, oh, I don't see color. Well, I want you to see that I'm Black, and I want you to see that I'm a woman, and somebody else presents themselves, recognizing that. But I think there's a lot of, I do think there's a lot of confusion, even within individuals, that also has to be cleared up. What hurt, what pain, what trauma have they gone through? What trauma are they trying to work with? We have a lot of people out here with a whole lot of trauma. And that's why, this grief thing, that could be something people are grieving about. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. And when you look at the way what womanhood is supposed to be like, or what manhood is supposed to be like, it does feel like an indoctrination. It does feel like you have to do all these things to be a woman. You have to do all these things. And so it certainly makes sense that those who don't fit into those boxes want to reject.
So Jonas True said, I have plowed and planted and gathered in the barns. And ain't I a woman? So she was a person that had what we might not call a really petite feminine physique. And she just wanted folks to know that, she was a woman, know. And
white women specifically too. She was talking to white women specifically too, because, the whole separate but equal thing, number one, caused a great deal of harm. And I think we're still trying to find our way to each other, Black women and white women, in this country, I should say, because we've had.
I think in a lot of places, because I think, unfortunately, the American lifestyle and things has perpetuated so many other places. I mean, even for instance, sadly enough, that when the horrible situations against Holocaust against Jews in Germany, they talked about, they used the United States as an example. When folks were in South Africa, when it was, quote unquote, legal apartheid, they used the United States. So there's a whole lot of things that the United States has permeated. And again, through music and culture, has also, put a lot of information that may not always be the best representation of the United States, but it has actually been. I know some folks that got here and they said, shoot, I was thinking it was easy to be over here. It's like, man, y'all work so much. No wonder y'all got 2 and 3 jobs. It takes that much just to survive in America. And these are people sometimes degreed and without degrees and finding out. So I think, again, we still need women, and we still need men, and we still need to be able to work together. We need families to work together. We need communities to work together. And that extends then neighborhoods and nations to work together, because, hey, ain't none of us getting out of here alive. So we better work together so we can thrive while we're here.
Well said. Thank you very much. And so as we end this segment, we end with a question of the day. So let me play that. So the question is, can a woman play James Bond? There's been a little bit of a controversy surrounding. It actually, her name is Lashana Lynch. She's a British actress, and she was in The Woman King. She did a great job in The Woman King. I saw the movie. The movie was just okay for me. It was just okay for me. But Lashana did a great job, and so she's being considered to be the next James Bond, which I think she would make a very good James Bond. However, this is ruffled feathers. So, what are your thoughts? Can a woman play James Bond?
Personally, I don't do a lot of judgment, but I think this is a ludicrous question. We've already shown that there have been women warriors throughout the world. I know Queen Nzinga is one. Queen Hatshepsut is another. Shoot, Ida B. Wells was definitely one of the strongest warriors. Angela Davis is still around. I mean, I consider myself, 00 soul. I'm here. I mean, we're women. We're all trying to change the world. We've had a number of things in history to show how strong women are. So, I mean, to play a character in a movie, I'm certain whether it's a superhero, we have now Black Panther is the woman, the sister, ended up taking that job. Spoiler alert for anyone that did not see Black Panther 2 by now. And we also, if you haven't noticed, in terms of the arts is a way to teach as well as prepare people, and also to present either information, whether good or bad, stereotypes, whether good or bad. But we've had a lot of women in a lot of the films and television roles who are adventurous types, who are, really taking control types. And so we need to consider that, but we need to also consider the folks like, Judge Brown now. There's so many women, Maxine Waters. I'm going to mention a person I work with directly, Delegate Diana Fennell here in the Maryland area. I was a campaign manager for Trina Brown as a councilwoman in Bladensburg, who's now working. I mean, these are all people, these are all 007s, and I'd say there's a part of each of us that probably is 007. And if in your family, you might be that one, so I'm sure there's a 007 in each family. But in terms of a movie role, I think it's just something to get people to talk about. And I like talking about it because it does get a chance for people to discuss, the norms, the pros and cons, the encouragements. I mean, we have great athletes, so we know people can do it, whether we think of athletes of the past, like I just thought of Flojo just came to my mind. Or if we have, our contemporary, like tennis champion, Serena and Venus Williams. I mean, we have so many folks to show their skill and expertise from a physical standpoint, and James Bond is definitely that, and the gadgets, as well as the intelligence, so.
But James Bond, very unique, right? James Bond, many of us grew up with James Bond. It's like Indiana Jones, Can a woman play Indiana Jones? Can a woman play 007? I think that's why people were like, ooh, wait a second. I don't know if a woman can play 007. Will I trust a woman to,
remember in Indiana Jones, I think it was the second one, he had a woman who played right next to him, and they were very similarly skilled in many of the things that they did, or it might have been the first one. I like that those series, by the way. And I was really excited about there was a little boy, and then he actually just won the Oscar. I was excited about that. But we have so many, Maya Angelou, and who she was. I had the pleasure to work with her. I've worked with folks who people know about, Ayanna Van Zandt, and she's another, so we've got a lot of, 007's already out here, doing above and beyond, the skills, intelligent folks, using their skills and, doing that kind of work right here. We've got a lot of miracle workers and we need them. So we're already doing the work, and I'm thinking of folks like, Mother Teresa, just so many others, and I want to mention this story. My name is Miriam Makeba. I was named after Marian Anderson, and I studied opera. And one of the things that was really important about, for those who don't know the story, Marian Anderson, well-known opera singer, sang throughout Europe, highly acclaimed, highly revered. She came back to the United States and wanted to continue her career here. She was going to sing at Constitution Hall, and she was not going to be allowed because, unfortunately, the racism in this country wasn't going to allow her to do that. So she couldn't perform at Constitution Hall. However, Eleanor Roosevelt,
because of a group of white women, that was the reason. Because
absolutely.
The Confederacy or something, I believe, it was a group of women. So when we talk about sisterhood, and when I talk about our past not going together, that's part of the example. She was denied by women, white women.
Right. And so Eleanor Roosevelt came out because I think she was a part of that group, and she said, this needs to happen. And so she came out and she made sure that Marian Anderson sang at the Lincoln Memorial. And it's very important because there are very few opera singers, very few Black opera singers still to this day. However, when she sang at the Lincoln Memorial, she became way more famous if she had sung Constitution Hall, which only fits 2,000 people. She sang for like 200,000, So that phrase in the Bible with somebody, I can't quote it correctly right this very minute, but what they plan for your demise is actually going to work for your good. And I say that because we do have to look out for each other, and we have to stand up for each other if it means going outside of your particular group to do that, because we have to make sure that we've got to take care of each other. That's that's the bottom line.
Well, thank you.
Nobody can take care of themselves.
That's true. Well, Queen Mother Nana Malaya, it has been an absolutely wonderful dialogue with you. Thank you so much for the wisdom you've imparted on us. Thank you for the work you do. Thank you for caring about us. Thank you for caring about our community, and for being such a strong presence and a Queen Mother.
Thank you for this. Thank you for this opportunity. I want to give thanks to my godmother and father, Nana Enyo and Nana Yurinchi, who are here based in the Washington, D.C. area. And also for folks who, we talk about Harriet Tubman. She's another 007. Come on now,
Not the original.
And her birthday just landed on the 10th of March, or let me say they established it on the 10th of March. And there's a number of events that I also help co-create that honor her. And especially in September, we go to Cambridge, Maryland, where we want to honor her life. And so people should look into that. And so they can probably find me on Facebook. So I'm going to mention Nana Malaya, and I use my whole name, Rucker O Parabia.
All right.
To find me, because Nana's an international name, Malaya is an international name. So Rucker or Parabia, you'll see my beautiful face, and you'll know it's me. But it's important that, like I said, that we do the work, and we are the linchpin to everything, know. And again, whether folks get the accolades or not, the work's got to be done. And I think there's a book now that talks about the women in the Black Panther Party, women in the civil rights movement. We'll be probably hearing about others. There's a quote unquote woman pharaoh, Hatshepsut. There's a lot of women that we don't necessarily know the impact they had, but we've been here and we're going to have it. We're going to continue to have it. And I'm here to inspire everyone, men and women, to continue to be that voice. And if folks' voices being silenced, I just want to encourage them that, we need your voice. And I will say, Harriet Tubman didn't take no stuff, wasn't scared of nothing either. She didn't come to this world to be no slave, and wasn't going to stay one neither. And I think women who have been subjugated ain't going to stay there either. It's time for a woman president. Black women are the majority of the planet, and women are the majority of the planet. So somewhere we got to have women of color ruling the world.
Well, we do
with the right frame of mind.
Yes, we do have women presidents in other countries. Africa has women presidents. Asia has women presidents. But
Barbados has a prime minister now.
Yeah. So women are doing their thing across the globe. So hopefully one day we will have a woman president here too.
I think the important thing is, like you said, to celebrate them wherever they are, because they're doing the work. And for those who are listening, take some time to research and find out who the female leaders are of different nations around the world, and learn a lot about them and share that knowledge as well, including the people in your family who have been leaders as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Nana Malaya. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your wisdom and for all the work that you do. If folks want to learn more about you, it'll be on my website, epluribusamerica.com. All the information about tomorrow's event will also be on that website, epluribusamerica.com, and you can follow us on our associated social media websites as well for that information. So I'll also share that later on today. So
thank you for your expertise as well. We definitely need your voice.
Well, thank you so much. I'm doing the best I can. That's right. Thank you so much. You keep me strong, Queen Mother. You really do. You hold the lantern in a very dark place. And one of the reasons why I came to the event at Sankova was to search for a little light. And you held that lantern. You were like, here it is. And I'm like, thank you. I needed that. I walked away with so much. I can't even tell you, but I'm truly grateful. And I'm glad that we finally have this opportunity to engage and, share you with other folks that I think certainly deserve to have a Queen Mother Nana Malaya in their lives, if not in their community. So thank you again. And I look forward to seeing you again.
All right. Thank you. I love being the light.
Of course.
We are all the light.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you for being the light. I will also, now we are moving on to Miss Sheila.
Great. Can you hear me? Hey, can you hear me?
How are you? It's so good to see you. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can. Thank you. I'm doing wonderful. I enjoyed that presentation. I love Mama Nana. Can you hear me?
I know she's a light. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yes,
There's
I can
a
hear
little
you.
bit of a delay.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with my. Yeah. So I'm really excited to have you, because not only a great speaker, but you keep a very important woman alive, a historical woman, and you've referred to her in your writings as the most important woman of the 20th century, who is Amy Jacques Garvey, the second wife of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And, I wanted to, as part of Women's History Month, I thought it would be very fitting to, get to know Amy Garvey through your lens, and the way you know it, the way you think folks should know it. So thank you for being here. I'm going to play a little video that we can pontificate about, and then we can go right into it. So just 1 second here. You know me and my videos.
That's baloney. That is hogwash. That's a damn lie.
I thought I had done.
I just wanted to say, I just love me some Amy Jacques Garvey. I mean, that was when I saw that clip, I watched it at least 10 times, if not more. But I'm like, this firecracker of a woman. She was just, where are these women today? Where are these women today? I see pockets of them here and there, but for the most part, you know, some of the women that are taking our attention are those that are twerking on top of cars, you know, in the middle of traffic, or twerking at funerals. That's making you know, the rounds on social media, and the way we communicate. So I just thought that was, I mean, wow, what a woman. And I also wanted to highlight this sister, Asada. She's in the UK, I believe. But this is she's reading a little bit about Amy Jacques Garvey, and this is just a short little piece of an extra of her book, which this book I have, and she's reading a page, just a little bit of that. I wanted to show that, to kind of highlight how far we've come as women, you know, how our minds have changed. What do we think about our roles today, and what we thought about our roles during Amy Jacques Garvey's time?
Almost impossible. I was able to rush of volume 2 to him. He said, now I want you to send free requests to senators, congressmen, and prominent men who might become interested in my case as I make a application for pardon. When I completed this task, I weighed 98 pounds, had low blood pressure, and one eye was badly strained. 2 doctors advised complete rest. I stayed with some friends in Montclair, New Jersey, but it was only a part-time rest, as I telephoned the flat daily and went on weekends to clear up accumulated work. After 2 weeks, he telegraphed me to come and bring all acknowledgements of books sent. Then he informed me that as soon as I was stronger, I should make a list of the favorable ones and go to the Capitol lobby on his behalf. Now I'm just sharing that to show you how much work needed to be done. Yeah. So whether you were able or not, you had to get on board and join the line to do the work.
So, you know, the way we look at our role as women today compared to Madame Garvey, it is very different. You know, we're talking about, we might as well be on different planets. And of course, I'm generalizing, but when she's talking about weighing not even 100 pounds, and she was reading newspaper articles and bringing it to her husband, Marcus Garvey. She was making sure that even though he was wrongfully incarcerated and persecuted, he was still able to do the work that I believe God has brought him on earth to do, to liberate Black people. And so, but her role, when you think about Amy Garvey, you can hardly think about that type of woman today, you know, sacrificing, going above and beyond, even in her own, you know, her eye is hurting. She's not even 100 pounds, but yes, she's running back and forth to make sure that the Garvey movement was alive and was being galvanized. I mean, what a hero. So, but you love her. Tell us why you love her.
Well, loving Mother Amy Femia Jacques Garvey is really easy when you analyze her writings, her life, the passion with which she did everything as not just the wife of the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey and not just the mother of their 2 children, but as a woman who was instrumental in various facets of moving a nation forward in a time where it was very clear to the races, because everything was defined in terms of races, and there were four. There was the black race, the white race, the red race, and the yellow race. And so people were crouched in terms of race very clearly. And that meant that people were very also clear about who their enemies were and who their allies were. And Black people at that time, as the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey knew, were battling a powerful system of racism that was crouched not only in the individualism of one or two people who happened to occupy space in the United States, but our enemy was the United States then, and arguably it still is. The Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey and the Honorable Amy Euphemia Jakes Garvey would often refer to the fact that their work was fueled by the fact that the United States was governed by a spirit, and that true spirit was represented by the KKK. So I say that to not trigger feelings of animosity among the races, which I don't need to do. There's so much of that going on already, but to help put some context on why a woman would allow her body to deteriorate to the point where she is 98 pounds, as you said, under 100 pounds, literally a skeleton, almost losing the eyesight in one of her eyes, and clearly in really bad shape. What could have possibly been driving a woman to go to that lengths? What was she dealing with? What was so motivating to her that she would risk her own life and limb in order to facilitate what her husband and leader and colleague and friend and partner in the world of global African liberation, right? So we want to just kind of paint the picture here so we don't get the misconception that we're dealing with a victim here, that we're dealing with the victim of spousal abuse in some way. But we are dealing with a global African leader who is carrying the weight of oppression and the counteraction to that, which was freedom. Freedom for not just herself and her husband, which they could have easily achieved and lived a very comfortable life here in the United States or in Jamaica, but people who were deeply concerned with the outcomes for the global African body politic. And if you don't understand that, what you just read could easily be taken out of context and place her in the position of a mindless, weak woman who was just carrying out the orders of an over-aggressive man. We want to make sure that we put some context and history around what was going on there, so that
was not my takeaway, though. That was I didn't look at her as some abused woman or anything like that. I look at her as she wasn't just doing this for Marcus Garvey, the individual. I think she was doing it for Marcus Garvey, the leader, because there was stake. So again, it's our identity as being culturally minded rather than individually minded. To me, it's part of my judgment. I personally did not see her as a victim of abuse. I saw her as a warrior. I saw her as a real warrior.
And that's exactly how we should see her, because what we are looking at is a highly complex woman with vast skill sets and vast motivations that exceeded the love of a wife to go into the love of a nation and the love of a people just as equivalent and equally as forcefully as her husband did. And so I like to say, people oftentimes think, and I know you were aware of this, Queen, but we're also speaking to potentially a larger audience who may have never heard of this Queen at all, because unfortunately she's not taught about in the school systems, and neither is the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. So when I was providing the context, it was so that if in fact someone who might not be familiar with her and might be trying to analyze what we are saying right now in the context of today's relationships and the appearance of realities that we have today, I wanted to make sure that we bring them to the forefront, because what we're looking at is the 1900s, the 20th century, a woman who finds herself not only in the position as a woman who is involved in what was an organization that represented the lifeblood and the lungs of the entire race, competing with other interests who did not like the idea of Black people unifying in such a way that people on the continent of Africa, people in the Caribbean islands, and people in the United States, and even in South America, were starting to see themselves as a potential power in the world that had the ability to overcome oppression, to organize economically and politically, and under one God, one aim, and one destiny. Can you imagine that in the 1900s, what that looked and sounded like? It was absolutely incredible. And the umbrella that they were operating under was referred to as the UNIAACL, or was the UNIAACL, which stood for, I don't know why I'm having a brain a brain release. I just get so excited sometimes. But it was the United Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League, right? And so there were several arms to that. And people, Black people, for the first time, as the Honorable Dr. Martin Luther King said, were beginning to see themselves in a way that they had really never collectively been able to see themselves before, with a kind of dignity in humanity that said, oh, we have resources. We have spiritual, intellectual, economic, political resources, and we're not necessarily dependent upon the charity and the politeness, if it's extended to us, of the United States and European colonialism. This was very powerful time in history. And at the forefront of that were two very important people, the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey and his wife and partner, Amy Euphemia Jakes Garvey, the honorable one, who was not just a wife and a mother and a secretary, who's often defined in terms or crouched in terms of the relationship she had to power through her husband. But this was a woman who was a major contributor on the world stage and a driver of the economic, political, and social changes that were taking shape in the hearts and minds of Black people. And let me give you an example of that. This woman was not only an archivist because of the work that she did to gather the data that was happening right there in her time, collecting the writings, observing the speeches, recording the circumstances of everything that was happening around her, making sure that she didn't miss a detail. She was doing this instinctively because she was a woman who was aware of the past, its important, the present, its importance, and its implications for the future. She was always thinking across these timelines, but she was a business administrator. A lot of people are not aware of that, but when we say secretary, we have to translate that, what that secretary term meant in the 1920s, to what that looked like today. Because everything a woman did in the office back then was a secretary. But in today's terms, we have to add some additional accolades. That would include a business administrator. She was keenly aware, having worked in a law office for 3 years after her education, that there were systems that need to be in place whenever you're running organizations. And one of the first thing she did was create a powerful system of transparency, removing her husband from actual contact with the cash and putting in systems, what we call to in the law, like a chain of custody, or in the accounting realm, a chain of custody or a cash controls, such that when she first got to the UNIA after having a powerful discussion in front of the UNIA headquarters in Harlem, she actually had an opportunity to tour the facility and to talk with him and to see what turmoil the office was in. Now, this was a very important piece because the organizational structure was a little confusing, so much so that people who had bad intentions were able to come into the UNIA and extract its resources. And this was happening left and right by people who were entrusted with leadership roles, who should have been doing the right thing, but who were absconding with resources that the people entrusted the UNIA with. When Mother Amy Euphemia Jakes Garvey hit the scene, that came to an immediate halt in the headquarters of the UNIA, because what she did was so powerful and so brilliant, it literally became the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey's defense in court when he was wrongfully accused, indicted, prosecuted, and unfortunately imprisoned for mail fraud. But because we know what we know, because of Garvey and Garveyism, because the writer did the writing and also implemented the strategies that the divine universe had built into her so she could fulfill her divine purpose as a business administrator, archivist, political analyst, you referenced the fact that she gathered newspaper clippings. Well, it wasn't just the gathering of the newspaper clippings, sister. She was actually analyzing the newspaper clippings. She would gather international reports because she said, oh no, honey, if you are going to claim to be the provisional president of the United States of Africa, you better know your stuff, and not just here in Harlem, and not just here in New York, and not just here on the East Coast, and not just here in the United States, but you better know what is impacting Black people globally, because these were global thinkers. They were ahead of their time. They could see, like the Honorable Amy Euphemia Jakes Garvey told us when she wrote an article in 1925 titled Women as Leaders. Women as Leaders. We get to understand exactly who this Queen Mother is, the scope of her intelligence, the passion that she had for racial liberation, but the concern and the deep motivations that she had for women, the women of her race. Would you like me to share that article with you in the form of a little bit of a reenactment, if you will, so we can kind of get a sense of what she might have sounded like, what she was thinking, and what she was doing for her people and for her women, and what she was asking for women to do as leaders. Would you like to hear that, sister?
Yes, and I'd love for my audience to hear it as well. I think, this is all part of bringing her back to life as she deserves to be, because if we ever needed an Amy Jacques Garvey, it is today. It is today. Can she come back and run for office?
She addresses that question too, ironically, in this article. Now, remember, this was an article that she wrote. What I want to preface this with is that we're talking about a woman who was alive in the 1920s. Scratch that. Let me just get into it, and then I will do the analysis afterwards if you will give me some time, right?
This is all your time. You will have a solo layout as well.
The exigencies. You ready? Okay.
Yes.
The exigencies of this present age require that women take their places beside their men. White women are rallying all their forces and uniting regardless of national boundaries to save their race from destruction and preserve its ideals for posterity. White men have begun to realize that as women are the backbone of the home, so can they, by their economic experience and their aptitude for details, participate effectively in guiding the destiny of nation and race. No line of endeavor remains closed for long to the modern woman. She agitates for equal opportunity and gets them. She makes good on the job and gains the respect of men who heretofore opposed her. She's not afraid of hard work, and by being independent, she gets more out of the present-day husband than her grandmother did in the good old days. The women of the East, both yellow and black, are slowly but surely imitating the women of the Western world. And as white women are bolstering up a decaying white civilization, even so, women of the darker races are sallying forth to help their men establish a civilization according to their own standards and to strive for world leadership. Women of all climes and races have as great a part to play in the development of their particular group as the men. Now, some readers may not agree with us on this issue, but do they not mold the minds of their children, the future men and women? Even before birth, a woman can so direct her thoughts and conduct as to bring into the world either a genius or an idiot. Imagine the early years of contact between mother and child, when she directs his form of speech and is responsible for his conduct and deportment. Many a man has risen from the depths of poverty and obscurity and made his mark in life, due to the counsel and advices of a good mother whose influence guided his footsteps throughout his life. Women, therefore, are extending this holy influence outside of the realm of the home, softening the ills of the world with their gracious and kindly contact. Some men may argue that the home will become broken up and women will become coarse and lose their gentle appeal. We do not think so, because everything can be done with moderation. Listen, the doll baby kind of woman is a thing of the past. The wide awake woman is forging ahead, prepared for all emergencies and ready to answer any call, even if it be to face the cannon on the battlefield. New York has a woman Secretary of State. 2 states have women governors, and we would not be surprised if within the next 10 years, a woman graces a White House in Washington, D.C. Women are also filling diplomatic positions, and from time immemorial, women have been used as spies to get information for their countries. Now, white women have greater opportunity to display their ability because of the standing of both races and due to the fact that Black men are less appreciative of their women than white men. The former would more readily sing the praises of white women than their own, yet who is more deserving of admiration than the Black woman? She who has endured the rigors of slavery, the deprivations consequent on a pauperized race, and the indignities heaped upon a weak and defenseless people. Yet she suffers all with fortitude and stands ever ready to help in the onward march to freedom and power. Be not discouraged, Black women of the world, but push forward regardless of the lack of appreciation shown you. A race must be saved. A country must be redeemed. And unless you strengthen the leadership of vacillating Negro men, we will remain marking time until the yellow race gains leadership of the world and we be forced to subservience under them or extermination. We are tired of hearing Negro men say, "There's a better day coming," while they do nothing to usher in that day. We are becoming so impatient that we will brush aside to the rushing to the front line and brush aside the halting, cowardly Negro leaders. And with prayer on our lips and arms prepared for any fray, we will press on and on till victory is over. Africa must be for Africans, and Negroes everywhere must be independent, God being our guide. Mr. Blackman, watch your step. Ethiopia's queens will reign again, and her Amazons protect her shores and people. Strengthen your shaking knees and move forward, or we will displace you and lead on to victory and to glory. That's it.
Wow, that was incredible.
Thank you.
You literally had my skin like crawling, but in a like it was so, that was an ancestral gift.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing her voice. Thank you. That was absolutely, and the message is still important.
The message is clear.
Still important and clear and still relevant today.
Yes. And there were like at least 5 key things that we definitely need to be paying attention to. She was keenly aware of the fact that Black women were in a position to make changes that they wanted to see in the world, but in their own communities and even in their own households. So while we were on this political front, and make no mistake about it, when Queen Mother Amy Euphemia Jakes Garvey spoke, the world trembled, just like when the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey spoke. So much so that they oftentimes limited her to just 15 minutes. So if you look at a lot of her speeches, you'll see that they're short and sweet and succinct. But I tell you, when that sister took the stage, she knew she better make the crowd rumble. And that's exactly what she intended to do. So she had mastered the art of what we call in the law IRAC, which is issue, rule, analysis, and conclusion, because she had studied in a law firm. And that was one of the gifts and talents that she brought to the UNIA. See, the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey wasn't even aware of it, but he had a legal consultant at his fingertips. And so what we're talking about is an intellectual equivalent and an equally passionate woman who not only influenced global politics and local politics and everything we know, but who was instrumental in the reformation of Harlem, New York, and key part of the Harlem Renaissance. You got to realize that this was a woman who was traversing the country, seeing everything from a firsthand perspective, a firsthand witness and agitator and motivator. And when she got on the stage, she would convey to the women and the men what was taking place internationally and nationally that was affecting Black folk. And what was so brilliant about her and the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey is that they recognized that there really is no freedom for just the elite few 10% of Black people who would make covenants with their enemies at the sacrifice of the masses. No, they had a bigger vision, and it is up to us to keep their legacy and their writings alive. These were intelligent people with a powerful message, and they already defined the issues and the solution. These were people who understood. Let me tell you something, Queen. The UNIA was considered a government by the US government, and that was partially why they were so dangerous and so targeted, because they were on the mouths of every European and Asian global power in the world. In fact, the slogan, Asia for the Asiatics, that triggered the Chinese War, Mother Amy said that came from a Black man, the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, who was recognizing that if Europeans were claiming Europe as their exclusive possession, to the exclusion of everyone else, the only way to bring peace in a warring world was to respect the rights of the others. Thus, he said, Asia must be for the Asiatics, and Africa must be for Africans. Black Negroes laughed at us, Negroes laughed at her husband, and European land grabbers ordained him a dangerous man. But these were people who were setting up groceries. They left no table unturned when it came to the liberation, because liberation wasn't a slogan. It was an activity. It was feeding a nation. Thus, they had grocery stores. Harlem alone had 3 grocery stores that white folk were shopping at. The first Black butcher was in Harlem. They had factories for making clothing. Every uniform that each of the members of the UNIA wore was sewn by one of the laundries. Do you know that there was a Black university in Jamestown, Virginia? Because Black folk were serious about reclaiming their humanity, dignity, self-respect, and what was theirs. And they weren't waiting for anyone to repair them. They had a plan for reparations, but they knew they better have a machine in place to be able to manage the resources that they were coming for once they got themselves organized. And so there was some brothers and sisters who said Jamestown may have been the place where you brought our initial ancestors, and arguably even 100 years before that in the early part of the 16th century. But there is indeed a Jamestown. These people built a Black university in Jamestown, and they had sense enough to recognize that there was an organizing Black organ for the Universal Negro Improvement Association that enabled them to hand over those resources to the UNIA to manage them. Unfortunately, because of the war that was waged against the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, the UNIA, and their closest comrades, that school, that university was lost to taxes. But this is what was so powerful. We have a group of people who were so brilliant, with so little technology at their disposal, who built up something so powerful that even today there's a conspiracy within the world to pretend like it did not exist, even though the CIA and the Alphabet Boys all birthed themselves in response to that movement.
Yeah. You know, since we're talking about the role of women and sisterhood, what can women today take away from what Madam Garvey has given the world? What is there? What can we reach to? What can we use today to really strengthen us as women, to improve the sisterhood across color lines? Is that even possible? It's these are all different struggles that culturally we're facing as a nation, as Pan-Africanist. But what can we learn? What can women today take away from Amy Jacques Garvey?
I think Mother Amy leaves us a roadmap and a hierarchy of priorities.
Mhm.
No one is going to come and partner with us as equals until we have embraced our own humanity, reclaimed our space politically and financially and economically and politically in the world. Any other relationship other than an equal will be that of a servant. So
Mhm.
what that means is that when the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey set out to establish the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League, he was establishing a group of people under the premise of one aim, one God, and one destiny. Meaning that once we are strategic in what it is that we all need to do for one another collectively, only then should we focus on our unique individualism. And I don't mean to say that we should not be individuals, but the individualism should be focused on what our ancestors were focused on: freedom and our health. Everything that we do economically, politically, socially should be around making sure that we have what we need as a people to sustain ourselves. And that is to be human and to make sure that people respect us as humans. There is a war being waged on our humanity. And unfortunately, we have been tricked because we have been told that these are just artistic expressions, that these are just individual rights, that you have to say what you want to say and feel what you want to feel, and have no respect or regard for the fact that your ancestors wanted to be referred to by one thing and one thing alone, and that was a child of the Most High. Mother Harriet Jacobs, the first woman who wrote her own biography and taught us what it was to be an enslaved woman, a Black woman in this country and enslaved. Everything that we know largely about the African woman experience during slavery came from that queen. And she wanted to be considered a daughter of the Most High. A child of God is how they said it back then, right? So I would ask us, what titles are we referring to ourselves? Did Queen Mother Harriet Tubman, Mother Amy Jix Garvey, Ida B. Wells, Mother Fannie Lou Hamer, Mama Betty Shabazz, Coretta Scott King, Mama, not all of the ancestors, when do you ever hear them refer to themselves as a four-legged dog or a witch or anything other than a child of God? Why was it so important for them? Because they knew that divine purpose was the key to all liberation. And so I would say, let us remember that Mother Fannie Lou Hamer was initiated into the civil rights movement because of reproductive overreaching by the government operating under the private sector of hospitals, surgery, and medicine, who took away her right to reproduce herself when she went in to have fibroids removed and emerged from that hospital violated because they did a surgery to remove her uterus. It was so common done against Black women and Black men that they call it the Mississippi appendectomy. That was Queen Mother Fannie Lou Hamer's initiation into the civil rights movement. It was anger and outrage at that overreaching, violating principle that oftentimes we lose sight of as Black women and think that our struggle is for the right to abort. No, our ancestors were fighting for the right to birth and to reproduce ourselves and to have the resources necessary to educate, sustain, and perpetuate that life with human dignity. But if you don't know what Mother Fannie Lou Hamer's chief concern was, the chief violation against her, you will be led to think that your current day circumstances dictate what we move forward as a people. It's a chain that has been broken, sis, and we need to reconnect the chain. And we have to go back to the mothers who left us clues, songs, spirituals, biographies, writings, poems, and literature, just like the kings did, telling us, leaving us clues about where we left off is where you should pick up. And anything other than that is confusion. We will be lost. And we will swallow the poison that the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey said that makes us think in a world where we are preparing for World War III. Yeah. And what that means for the global African body, that is not a fight over Ukraine, that is a fight over Africa. And therefore, it is a fight over every African person on the planet, no matter where we are in the diaspora. The world sees us as its harvest. Make no mistake about it. And that is why we must listen to the words in that article, Women as Leaders, because she was saying, listen, white women, and she's talking in the 1920s, white women are gathering all their sources and uniting regardless of national boundaries. Why? To save their race from destruction and preserve its ideals for posterity. Do you see the strategic planner in her? She was saying our present problem, our issue is we are dying off as a race. We are being exterminated.
Yeah.
It's a race. And she even talks about the fact that if we don't get our act together now, by the time the yellow race, which is, you got to forgive her, that's the language they were using then, by the time the yellow race gains leadership of the world, we will be forced to subservience under them, Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, Ethiopia, or we will face extermination.
Yeah.
Very clear.
Yeah.
How did we do that 100 years ago?
Yeah, we've, we're in a certainly a tough moment where we have to really look at the real issues that we're facing, not just as women, but as Black women, women of color, white women. I mean, there's certain things we can identify with and come together with, but other things, we walk the path alone. And I'm truly grateful for you sharing the struggles and the work of Mother Amy Jacques Garvey. Yeah, we've come a long way, but we still have a long ways to go because it doesn't seem like, at least today's women, fully understand the groundwork that was laid for them. Especially when we look at what's happening in our mainstream culture, and you look at the things that are exciting and sexy to our younger people. It's about fame and fortune and the just over exaggerated sexuality. Look at even how women go under the knives, and the type of women that we even idealize, like the Nicki Minaj or the Beyonce or Sierra. The other day, Sierra she wasn't the only one, but she was practically at the Oscars after party, like naked almost. I just couldn't believe that this woman was doing that. But then I'm like, and then we also have Beyonce on a horse, also practically naked on her. You know what I mean? Like, and we have Nicki Minaj. Like, God bless them all, but those are the images that young women are seeing. That's what they want. They're not going to the bookshelf to read about Amy Jacques Garvey. They want to twerk like Beyonce. They want to have anacondas like Nicki Minaj. They want to be naked at the Oscars like Sierra. Those are the women that are being idolized and that are taking center stage, which is very American because there's no community there. It's a very individual, it's a shrine, everyone is and the whole idea of, when we call ourselves queens, many of us, like folks like yourselves, it's coming from an ancestral place. It's coming from a historic place. It's coming from a village. It's coming from a tribe. But when we're looking at who's calling themselves queens, and it's like, what? There's a new show I saw. There's some TLC or whoever's coming up with a new show, and they're calling the word queen is inside of it. And it's three women, very violent women. These are all reality TV women. One of them is, what is her name? She's a Braxton, it's Tamar Braxton. There was another one who was at Basketball Wives. I don't know her name, but she jumped on a table with a wine bottle, was going to chase another woman and hit her with a wine bottle, a very violent woman. And then there's somebody else. So but this is what this country sees us as. These are the so-called queens that are being uplifted, that are being given a spotlight, that are being given a platform to encourage other queens to come along and join them. And you're like, where are we going? Where are they taking us? Where are they taking us? Do you even know where they're going? Or how naked can you get? What is the next level to this?
It's a part of the extermination process. It's very deliberate, and it's not new. When the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey was at the height of the UNIA, they had some very prominent artists and actors and writers and people in this entertainment space that were sometimes doing things that were against the UNIA's values, that made the Black men or Black women look like caricatures. And when that would happen, the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey would call them out. Even though they may have supported some of his initiatives, he made no claims. He made no qualms about the fact that when you go out and you do something to disrupt the race by helping to perpetuate an idea that we are animalistic beasts, having no sexual control, having no sense of purpose, pandering to whatever it is for $1. They had these same issues. There were women that were, shake dancers and stuff. So this is a old battle that we've always faced, and that we have not been adequately able to address because of now with technology. I would almost have to say to a mother, remove the TV from your home And if you have to have any type of access to the internet, monitor it closely, because the war is so deeply embedded into technology that you may be thinking you're doing everything to protect the innocence of your child, and you expose them to a cartoon box or just leave them for 30 minutes alone with a cartoon, and like you've lost everything. It's so easy to have lost your child's innocence in 30 seconds. You know, even when I look on Instagram, I sometimes have to do a spiritual cleanse because I'm inundated on my screen with images of pornography by women. You know,
Yeah.
and if you say anything, it's like, oh, you're just a hater, or you don't know, or
Stop
you
hating.
just wish you had it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and
It
you'll
is-
notice that none of our high spiritual people anymore say anything. Everyone is just, oh, people are where they are. You don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. Well, you were like that. Well, what's the point of becoming an elder if you cannot elder your people? That's the whole point. I mean, this is nothing new. Our ancestors understood that we were once children, we became adults, and then we became elders. And that when we were children, we behaved as children do. And so, because you are an elder, and prayerfully you're one who is wise now, you do have the right to articulate your concerns about the way you see the youth behaving. Today, we've canceled everybody by pointing out, well, when you were 13, you had on, these little shorts. That was when they were a child, and their elders had the right to discipline them. That's been the cycle for thousands of years in African culture. Not today. The elders are afraid to say anything because someone might show up a photograph of them when they were 13. That's okay because they were 13. Now they are elders and they have wisdom and they should have rank. But we as a society have taken away the rights of the elders to speak, and they are silent on so many things that they should be speaking on because they're afraid of being humiliated. But that was the whole point of going through the stages of life and maturity. We're depriving the mature of the right to share their wisdom and insights. That's the whole point of oral tradition, rank, and hierarchy in society.
Yeah. One of the reasons why I created this platform, which started off which is a magazine, an online magazine about American culture, was so that those who aren't in the mainstream can also have a voice. I don't have to agree with you or that. No, we don't all have to agree, but we should have a space where we can at least have a dialogue and a way where we can reach a certain understanding amongst ourselves. But I really needed a space where I could share my thoughts and have other folks share their thoughts and think of and talk about the things that they are experiencing in their culture. One of the reasons why this magazine exists was really out of pain. I went to upstate New York I thought I was going to be a television news anchor. I thought I had the whole thing figured out. I'm going to go there. I'm going to work for NBC at the local market. I'm going to work my way to New York City, and I'm going to be a national broadcaster for NBC. That was my dream. That was the goal. And then I went to small town America, so to speak. I moved from DC to upstate New York, and I was total culture shock. I was like, is it still America? Are we still here in America? Like, I really thought I was transported into the 1950s where everything was segregated. It was just such a different experience. But culturally too, I was totally rejected. They were like, the idea of me even wanting to be a local news anchor in their town was offensive to some of them. It was like, I'm offending them. Like, who do you think you are coming to our town? And they had never, at that point when I was there, they had never had a Black new morning anchor or any of So those are and I just could not understand. I'm like, wait a second, I'm from a different country. Yes, I'm from Suriname, but I was born American. I was born American abroad. And so I've always been told about the American dream, and you work hard, you do the, I believed it. And so when I tried to make that happen, when I was confronted with racism and discrimination and just the nasty human stuff that makes no sense, I was really hurt by that, and I needed a space where I could really. I wanted to almost sound a bit like, "Hey, folks, do y'all know what it's like in the rest of the world? Like in the rest of the country? Do you know what's happening in Utica, New York? Do you know what's happening in Syracuse, New York? Do you know what's happening in any small town? Ohio? I don't care. Every little. I was shocked by the experience, and then I'm like, and we are the United States of America. We have this idealism of who we are supposed to be, or what we are, and all. But when the boots hit the ground, that's not true. It's not true. And Mother Garvey, it's a damn lie.
It's a lie. It's a damn lie.
Right. And what she was referring to is the appearance of Black faces in political leadership. Don't be fooled, is what she was saying. It's not the same as being empowered politically. Just because you have people in place, they are just gatekeepers, or they are symbols.
Yeah.
They are to appease, and so sometimes people can get in harm, and they look like you and I, and they can do more damage to set us back 1,000 years.
Some of the people who have hurt me the most look like me. And that hurts me because I love my Black people so much. I really, why this is why I do what I do. I feel the pain and the trauma of our history.
Mm-hmm.
I hear the ancestors. I'm in touch and in tune, and I'm breathing with the planet, and I really feel these things, and I am so saddened that those who have caused me so much hurt look just like me.
Mm-hmm.
Women too. I'm talking about women, Black women who have caused me so much hurt, but those who have also lifted me the most up also look like me.
Yes.
So I also have, there is a balance, if I could say that. Those who have uplifted me, like folks like Nana Malaya, folks like that, I have so many other people that I can point to, but I'm just saying, we have a lot of work to do within our community to come together. Even when you look at the Garvey movement, the biggest Achilles heel was not just the government, not just those who, not the regular oppressors, not the evil we knew, but the ones that we thought were our friends. People like W.E.B. Du Bois went against Garvey. Those types of figures. I mean, it was us that damaged that movement. That was such an important movement. At one point, Marcus Garvey had the most popular newspaper in the whole country. It was translated into 3 different countries. That's when Europe they were like, wait a second, this Garvey movement is a real thing. His newspapers are here in Europe.
Yeah.
And that's what caused them to be afraid of the power of the Garvey movement. And then unfortunately, those who he decided to help, to bring on board, were making holes in the boat.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of the reckoning we have to come to terms with as Black people. We still have a lot of work to do amongst ourselves. And I'm grateful that when you come along and you bring to life the work of Amy Euphemia Jacques Garvey, it's another reminder of the possibilities of who we are, where we come from, the giant shoes we still must fill. It's time to refocus and get back to the good work that has been started by folks like Garvey. So I'm really grateful for what you do.
Yeah.
Let's finish the rest of this video real quick, as I want to get to the question of the day, which is a little different from you. You mentioned war, and we got another little war on our hand. It's called Trump. I'm just joking. I'm just joking. But let me
Some
just.
hero of African history, American history, and world history. Miss Amy, you, me, Jacques Garvey, we proudly on your shoulders.
Nice.
On your shoulders.
You know, I wanted to leave a question up real quick.
I was trying to read it.
And I'll put it up. Actually, you know, it's also here. I can do that here too. And so, question of the day: Should Donald Trump be perp walked if when he's arrested? Obviously, you know, he caused a little drama earlier this week because DA, the Manhattan DA, basically they're preparing to arrest him or indict him. You know, so then the former president is basically calling for protests, as protests. You know, they're trying to arrest me. You know, go after them. He's getting his supporters to go out there and support him. And then after, when he wasn't arrested on Tuesday, which is what that was expected, he posted another picture on his Truth Social network and social media network, and that's him holding a bat, which is very violent. He's again acting like he's the mob. You know, he's threatening people like he likes to do. Go his way. So, but the fact that he was even going to be arrested, the possibility that he would even going to be arrested, caused a lot of people to talk, and so there was a lot of commotions, and I think people were kind of like, well, I don't know. People showed up. They want to see him in handcuffs. They want to see him arrested. I mean, there's a real thirst for his blood in some circles. So, and but then there's the other side. This is a former president. And do we really want to see him perp walked? What does that serve? Is that a symbolism that we need as a society, as an American society, that we need to see Donald Trump be handcuffed and perp walked to jail? So we have a couple of things that are going on here, and so I wanted to ask you, what do you think? Should and if that time comes, should Donald Trump be perp walked when he's arrested?
Okay, you got to define for me what perp walked is, because I'm ashamed to say I don't know what that means.
You know how they a perp is short for a perpetrator, right? Bad guy. So a lot of police officers, law enforcement, what they like to do is they like to shame the perps, the perpetrators, and they'll handcuff them, and you're handcuffed and you're in front of the media. Everybody's watching you. Everybody takes a picture of you in handcuffs, and you're being led to jail. It's an embarrassing act. It's shameful. Nobody wants to do that. I mean, some politicians, they'll protest and they'll have their hands behind their backs or whatnot. But that's the perp walk, is to be handcuffed and to be led to jail in front of the media. So you're not just paying for the crime you've allegedly committed, but you're being shamed in front of the world stage. Do you think Donald Trump should be perp walked if and when he's arrested, so the world can
see it?
Yeah. And
Well, I think that that goes to symbolism, and I'm not so concerned about symbolism. My chief concern is, would perp walking him, if and when he's arrested, what would that translate to for people of African descent? Will it reduce the number of deaths and arrests that we are encountering on a daily basis? Will it improve our economic standing? Will it change the way our people are thinking about themselves in health? And how are they organizing around food shortages and um, potential financial turmoil that could result in one of the massive changes that has ever happened in our lifetimes around the way we manage money and spend money and relate to money? Or would it, in fact, reduce the environmental factors that are destroying Black lives in ways that we can't see in the skies and in the waters? If perp walking him would have a positive impact on any of the things that are oppressing Black folk, I would say go for it. But if it doesn't, I have absolutely no concern one way or the other.
yeah, I don't think it would impact any of those really important social issues that you highlight. But it's when it comes to symbolism, it would certainly quench the thirst of those that want his blood. There's a real disdain for the former president, and for obviously for many good reasons, but then he also has his supporters. There are those who are sycophants. There's he can do no wrong. And so but he's also seems to be using his supporters as the bat he was wielding. But then you really want to ask these people, what has Donald Trump done for you, other than water the roots of your racism? What has he really done for you? Are you making more money? Do you have a better job because of him? All these things, it'd be really interesting to know if all the people who support him blindly are better off, or are they really just trapped in their own race war and their own view of what this country is, and who this country represents, and what is this country for? Who is it for? Is it a Black country? Is it a white country? I mean, obviously we're a multicultural country, but there's a real a struggle for our identity, and there are those who believe they have the right to be identified as the face of America, and so, and you see a lot of these people support Donald Trump. They wrap themselves in the flag and so forth. They change the flag, even the flag that they're supposed to. You're not supposed to change or violate in any other way, but they do. So it's an interesting time, certainly, but I think it's also a dangerous time that he is calling people to protest if he does get arrested, and that and then he's also wielding a bat as a symbolism of a threat against the Manhattan DA. So this is a real issue. This is a real struggle that has some of its roots in racism, and that's part of the problem that we as Americans have still not overcome. We're still struggling with that.
Well, I think it is important to acknowledge that there is a code, that language that he is speaking, that allows for argument legally, that I didn't say anything, I didn't invoke anything, I didn't cause that person's death, I didn't force anyone to, I never even paid anyone to go do harm. So I think if there's anything to be learned from that, is how instructive symbols are to what the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey stated was the spirit of America. Its true spirit is rooted in pure racism. And the bat no matter what that racism holds, what instrument they hold. We could be looking at it and thinking baseball, but it could actually mean a code for something very different, like someone's life being lost later that day. So, if anything, that bat should tell people of African descent, no matter where they are, that they need to pay attention to the way their enemy communicates, both tacitly and expressly, right? Because there are implications for some Black man or some Black woman somewhere in the United States or even otherwise. These symbols are very important to people who hold patriotism, which is another code for, unfortunately, the misguided term of white supremacy, which is no such thing. But these are very important things for them. They're very attached to symbols. And like you said, when you went to go and just thought you were going to bless a little town with your beautiful face, no, you were a symbol, a disruption to the symbolism. So symbols are very important to some people, and they should be important to us. This is why the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey had a red, black, and green flag, because he understood symbolisms. And I see you got your red and black going as well, and I got the green for the plant. So we're there.
That's right.
Unity. Some subconsciousness going on right there. But no, these messages and these symbols are important. And our ancestors also spoke in code. And, I write about this secret language that Dr. Martin Luther King and Frederick Douglass, the Honorable One, and the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, this code that they were using along with Queen Mother Harriet Tubman and Harriet Jacobs to secure freedom and health. They aren't the only one with access to a language that sounds like English, but in actuality has very different meaning. This is why when we analyze the Negro spirituals in the context of liberation and freedom, we hear a very different song from something religious. We hear a map layout, a strategic plan for making an exit, right? We hear routes and times and places. But if you don't know the code and the symbol and have your own in place and be able to decipher when symbols are being used and how that could have a negative impact on you and your family and your sons and daughters, and be able to teach them these things. Why is it important for every rap star, actress, and celebrity to disrobe themselves? What symbolism is there? Why is it so important for Black women to display the part of their body that used to represent the greatest amount of privacy and even shame? Why is it so important for us to the part of the body that releases excrement and waste? Why is it so important for us to demonstrate that aspect of our body before the world? Why not the wrist? Is not every part of the
Sierra threw me off with that. She really did. I was like, did she literally just do that? And also, I must say, even Beyonce naked on that horse was very strange to me. Especially, she's a mother of what, 3, right? She has 3 children now, or 4, I don't know. But I felt that there's something there that's very uncomfortable, at least for me. I thought it was very strange that she was naked.
Well, what's even more disturbing is that this is being associated with being independent, with being free, with being fierce, with being a boss, right? In other words, the more you aspire to expose your body, the more support you get, the more fame and accolades. And what's more interesting is that the white world, who controls media and exposure, they're not interested in having this conversation with you and your turtleneck on and me and mine, and we're talking about Amy Euphemia Jakes Garvey. This won't make it on CNN. It's an equally important conversation about bosses and queens and power, but it has to align with an agenda. And it just so happens that they're dishing out big cash for people to display the part of their body that releases excrement and waste. Yeah, it just so happens to be a shapely part that attracts sexualism. But what about the feet? What about the ears? I mean, I've got some really gorgeous ears. Why not that? Right? Why not that? Because that doesn't align with the imagery of the beast. You remember, this is an old story. When enslaved women were raped and brutalized, and when they sometimes went to the white women seeking justice, even at a small dichotomy, can you relate what your husband or your son just did to us? They would say, that witch made me rape her. I had no control over myself. That beast, that animal seduced me. That wicked woman. I mean, even the Salem witch trials, this was a common thing. Black women were oftentimes, enslaved women were put on stakes after being raped and being caught or exposing the white men who were doing it. Oh, they were a witch. They bewitched me. They did it to even white women. So it's a very interesting dichotomy that you have women being put out front on the stage, not for inventing the Crown Care steam station like I did, or writing a book or putting out a magazine. These are not applaudable qualities that deserve the kind of accolades, or like Sister Dr. Hadida Green literally inventing a cure for cancer. That doesn't deserve worldwide recognition and support. I mean, this sister is literally out here keeping her ingenious in our community and saying, listen, we can finance this. We can control this. She could easily go to some large corporation and hand over all the technology, but no one in CNN or at Fox is putting that queen out there. Why not? Is there a multifaceted approach? Because what they're doing is they're taking 1% of Black women and making it seem like that's 115% of Black women, even mistakenly calling it culture, right? That's not culture. That's one woman who happens to have about 5 to 15 other colleagues who are willing to do and say anything to make themselves feel alive.
Yeah.
Why do they need?
One of the things I argue with is, I think, yes, of course, we all have this desire that you want people to like the things you do or appreciate the things you're doing. But I think we're in a different time. We have an opportunity with technology to really change the narrative that I don't have to be on CNN to provide something valuable. Those who want to come can come. And those who don't want to come, they can go to CNN. That's fine. I think we should find value in the stillness. I think
and the Garveyism and what you said is we have to not only create these platforms for ourselves, but then we've got to throw all the attention to it. We have to put one of the reasons why women engage in the behaviors that is so outrageous that they do is because who pays attention to us when we are speaking the good gospel of nobility and freedom and health and positivity and history and love and sisterhood? Where are the millions of comments that should be taking place on our page right now? To just say, hey, sis, I see you. Hey, sis, you spoke that. Hey, sis, I love your natural hair. Hey, sis, are you going to come on our show later on? Where are they? Even among our own sisters who are supposedly in the same space, we do not come out and lift one another and support one another in the same way that the ratchet of the world do. So the sisters are paying attention and they say, good girls get no attention. Righteous women who are about that science, that are about that math, women who are about that political power, who are about that health, they don't get the kind of attention that I get when I expose my nipples. Whether good or bad, Everybody focuses on them. The religious people focus on them. Oh, look at the devil. The astute, even the black elite will say, well, sisters have lost their mind. Everybody is focusing on them, and they don't care whether it's good or bad. That algorithm is boosting, right?
Yeah.
That attention is going up, and they are on everyone's tongue. There is no cash in doing what you and I are doing right now.
Yeah. But I'm saying and that's unfortunate. I hear you that I think, when we have more resources and we have more support and more hands on deck, it certainly galvanizes the work that we do. But when it comes to attention, I want I want the attention of those who want to help. I want the attention of those who um, who want to who appreciate what I do, who value this work and really see it as good work. That's the attention I want, because when you do open yourself to the World Wide Web, you open yourself to a lot of real negative energies, real destructive forces that's all they want to do. They want to hurt. But if I focus my attention to those who want to protect what we have, like, I really don't care about attention. I don't want anybody's attention that doesn't value because it's a reciprocal thing. I give, you give. You give, I give. I think we have to get away. I would think so. We have to get away from this desperate need to get everybody's attention. Which is why people are exposing themselves. We're so desperate for attention and and whatnot. I say, value those who show up. Value those and appreciate those who show up, and that's good. Because when you hear the story of that, you walk down the beach, all these starfish, there's no way you can throw them all back into the ocean. But if you throw one or two, that's fine. So the few that show up, I'm so grateful for that, and that's enough for me. I find value in that, and I really believe in grassroots efforts. I believe in grassroots work. Not every camera or everything has to be right on you. Not everyone has to see what's going on for your hands to get dirty. Get in there, get to work, build your community up. No, you don't need a camera to help out a homeless person. You don't need to post everything on social media, every good that you do. Everyone, we want to be, we want a little pats on our head every time we do something, because we're teaching our young people that only when somebody is watching you is your good deed of value.
Yes.
And that is a total disconnect to the divine. Then why do we even have religion? Why do we have the concept of God? If you absolutely need someone to be witness to what you're doing, like, look at this, to me, I just think that there's no value there for me. So those who show up, great. I don't need to be on CNN. I just need to be Jeanette Lenoir, and I want to be able to still provide this space where we can share with those who will value it and who will take it and go plant other little trees, because we're not done planting trees. We're giving seeds to those who want to use them, because our work is not done. We have a lot of work to do, and which is why I really appreciate you talking about Amy Dox Garvey, you bringing her alive. And, she's so relevant today. And I really do believe that she was, one of the most important figures and women of the 20th century. And it's so unfortunate that we didn't give her flowers while she was alive. But we weren't in that space yet. America wasn't the America that even Langston Hughes got to experience. You know what I mean? And so today, I'm grateful that we do get to give her flowers, because I certainly and firmly believe that they are still with us, just in an ancestral world. And I know that they're grateful. If they're watching, and that's good enough for me. So I don't need CNN. I got the ancestors. Those who want here,
I like that you said that, because I never really thought about it in those terms, that we're giving her flowers, right? And I there's something poetic about that. But I also want to say thank you for the work that you're doing, because there are not very many platforms that have the type of connections that you have that will open up to a conversation like this. So you need to get your proper respect and accolades and flowers as well, for allowing, us who are doing this very important work of moving things from the past into the present so that we can create the desired future that we want for our sons and daughters. And we do need to get your platform out in front of our children so that they can see that there is another way of being in the world. Look at this beautiful intellectual sister with fashion and style and intelligence and media savvy and and wherewithal and gathering it togetherness, who is using her resources in a way to put out information that helps move our people into a better place for the future. So thank you, beloved, for what you are doing and for having me on your show for the second time. I definitely do not take that for granted at all.
Oh God, I'm so grateful. But we'll do more together, because when I was thinking about your show, I think it's so powerful. I think it should be in every classroom. Every person needs to hear you bring Amy Jacques Garvey alive. I really do strongly believe that they in every classroom in Washington D.C. Let's try to make that happen. Let's try to get you in the classroom, and then we'll do something else where we can get it on every classroom. We'll especially go to Florida and pay Ron DeSantis a little visit, him trying to shut Black history down.
It's interesting because Mother Amy was very, very brave, and she did not hesitate to go where there was danger for her people. There was one occasion where the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey had been imprisoned in Tombs, Atlanta, and he was making an itinerary for her crisscrossing across the country. And she was invited to speak in New Orleans. And then the people said, Mother Amy, don't come. It's too dangerous. We don't want anything to happen to you. There was a lynching last night. And she said, you need me more than you have ever needed me before. And she went down there with her colt in her purse. Okay, Mama Ida B. Wells. She went down there with her colt in her purse, and she gave a stirring message. And she said, by the sound of the amens in the corner, in the hallelujah corner, I did deliver a message of freedom, right? And so she was just really aware of her presence, just her presence, what that meant to Black folk. And for sisters out there who are engaging in this work, who are struggling for space in a very male-dominated world, remember, Mother Amy Euphemia Jacques Garvey was living in the 1920s, where women were, especially in the Black community, were pretty much relegated to social issues, that was your sphere. And she was like, that's so limited. Let me talk to you about what's happening in China and why you need to know what I have to say about what's happening in Russia. And here's what's going on with the Jewish community and how that relates to us. And are you aware of what's going on in Cameroon? And by the way, my husband will be speaking. And I am here. Here just as well to deliver the message. And that is precisely what she did. She stepped into the Honorable Marcus Messiah's Garvey's shoes and literally became the de facto president of the UNIA. But that's a quiet as kept. We won't tell the brothers that, but that's what happened. And she kept the UNIA going in the midst of the FBI, in the midst of the internal turmoil and all of the chaos that was going on. This sister and a few of his most closest comrades were holding things together. And you have the same fortitude, power, intellectual ability to do the same. People might not respect you in the way they will if you got down on your knees and twerked. And that's not respect. I shouldn't even say that. They might not pay as much attention to you. But if you show the beauty in your lungs through your vocal cords to advocate for those who are unable to advocate for themselves, if you can articulate and speak what's in your heart, the solutions to problems, the cures to diseases, Dr. Hadia Green, we love you. And even Mother Amy Euphemia Jakes Garvey's, her comrades, Mama Henrietta Vinton Davis, and Mother Amy Ashwood, all of these women whose names we do not know, and those whose names we do know but don't refer to as much as we should. It's time to bring them back to the conversation. They have so much to share with us, so much to tell us about why we are where we are today, why we're thinking in the ways we're thinking, and what we need to do using the very resources that the Most High gave us: air, fire, earth, and water. I call it A Few Tools in my book. Y'all know I'm an author as well. I have a book called The Divine Self-Care Strategy, a wellness guide to total body alignment. It is deeply rooted in Garveyism, and it is deeply rooted in African culture history. I'm introducing our daughters to an African word, an Amharic word to describe our womb. Our womb. It's Dabo. The beautiful women of Wolo have been using this Amharic word to describe their most sacred part. Why can't we? Why can't we? It means beautiful bread. Our people spoke in metaphors. It is a high intellectual language. So you don't have to be reduced or limited to just having some WAP. You've got Dabo. And can you imagine having that kind of conversation with your spouse, or to teach your daughters in a loving and beautiful way about how to prepare her Dabo for the transitions from girlhood into womanhood when she gets her cycle? I have all of this beautiful wisdom in my book, The Divine Self-Care Strategy, a wellness guide to total body alignment. And it's available on Amazon. It's available on my website as well, Queendom Care. And I spell care with a Q. But I'm here, and I've written an article about Mother Amy Euphemia Jakes Garvey. And if your audience is interested in reading that article, they can simply text the word Amy, AMY, to the number 202-952-6123, and they'll get the article instantly. I would appreciate it if you would read it. Let us know what you think. You can email me at info@SheilaBrownSpeaks.com, or follow me on social media. I'm connected to this beautiful queen, so I'm sure she will put my information in somewhere where you can access it. And let's build, family. We will be doing more reenactments of Mother Amy Euphemia Jakes Garvey. In fact, Queen, remember I had invited you last month, but we changed it to April 1st and 2nd. So I'm going to be prayerfully in Harlem on April 2nd, meeting with Dr. Julius's powerful management team. They're bringing a film crew, a camera crew, and we're going to do a visitation in Harlem, reliving what it was like for Queen Mother Amy Euphemia Jakes Garvey. Well, I have these beautiful garbs from the 1920s, and I am going to be looking crazy out there wearing her style of attire from the 20s, like on that picture where she's sitting on the donkey for her wedding. So I've got the 1920s hat, the frock dress, the style of shoes with the buckle on it and stuff. I got everything except for them hideous stockings. That's where I draw the line. I'll do anything for Mother Amy except those stockings.
You know, speaking of women roles, that was one of the roles that women had to, they were bound by. They had to make sure that their stockings, it's 1950, women had to make sure they had their stockings had to be on point. Otherwise, husbands would be very upset.
Please don't make me do stockings. That's where I draw the line. Can I have some self-standard? Those stockings were thick too. Those stockings were thick and restrictive, but you know what? I have the hat, I've got the garb, I got the gloves, I got the whole thing. So I'm excited about it because this was just something that I was sparked to do, just out of my own curiosity, to reimagine what Harlem must have been like when Mother Amy Garvey and the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey were on the scene at the height in the 1970s, 18, 19s, and 20s. before all of this disruption, it just makes me so excited. So prayerfully, this will be something that, becomes a tradition, and the UNIAs, wherever they are, will join us, and we'll get together. And, because the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, he used to get on these soapboxes, and he would stand up and he would just talk and talk and talk almost till he couldn't speak anymore. And that's how he grew his audience. And so I would imagine Mother Amy might have done something similar. I don't know. But she was a prolific speaker. In fact, when she spoke before the women in Europe, white women in Europe, they declared her the most important Negro woman of her race. That's how bad the sister was. Good, excellent, prolific she was as a speaker. And so I just get so excited about her because there's so much to learn. And she literally captured generations of history in the book she wrote called Garvey and Garveyism, one of the massive gifts to the world. And we need to know about it. We need to know about it in the context of reparations, in the context of family. She's got a secret embedded family guide. And the volumes of the philosophies and opinions that she put together before the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey had even gotten arrested. She had the vision to do that. But what the sister Jeanette was referring to, where she lost all of that weight and almost suffered from blindness, was when her husband asked her to gather all of those volumes and to republish them. So what that looked like in the 1920s was her having to edit it by hand with a little typewriter where they had to do like this. So she was crouched over and losing her eyesight because the dimness of the light at nighttime. So it was hard work. And I have a similar experience when I was writing this book, The Divine Self-Care Strategies. If you don't mind, Jeanette, this is my book. And it took me a year to write this book. I can't imagine how Mother Amy did it with all the word and applications I have. It was really a time-consuming, research-based process. But this is my gift to the world, and we all have gifts.
It'll have, for those who do want to read your article, it's already on my website. So that's my current feature.
Oh, I didn't know. Okay. I didn't see it on your website. I was on your website. I didn't see it.
Yeah, well, I changed the headlines a little bit, but I just the headline. And but yeah, check it out. It's the feature that's there currently if they want to read it. And I will also link your book, all your information and all of that. And all your information actually is already in the bottom of that article too. So your information is there. But I'm also going to link your book and link to all of your associated sites so folks can directly reach out to you as well. So that'll all be there. But I wanted to go ahead and put that article up because we were going to be talking about this.
Oh, great. I didn't know, but I'm grateful that you did. That it was a really, really long article that was just the first part. It's a 3-part series. So that was just the first part. And I wrote it like 3 years ago to maybe 2 years ago. And I got no fraction on it. Like I was sending it to people. I was like, why is no one reading this? What am I doing wrong, Lord? Why can't they see that this is the article they need to be reading? But now it's picking up and people are, this is Mother Amy Jake Garvey's year. I want to hold you, but I enjoyed the conversation.
Why don't you record it? Why don't you do an audio version of it? And so for those who don't want to read it, I love audiobooks. That could be another option as well. So if you record it, the 3-part series, have that available as well. So for those who want to listen to it, because I think for young people, I really believe this will be a really great educational treat for young people to let them hear what Amy Jacques Garvey sounded like, what those types of
may have sounded like when I do it, right?
You sound a lot like her because I heard her voice. You do sound a lot like her, and I think you should record this. I think you should make it available. So if you can't be there physically, at least you'll have an audio copy that folks, we have to capture the information. We have to be documenters of history as well, and then share the knowledge and make sure our young people have access to it. And, you have to move with the times. And if people aren't reading, that's fine. Do an audio and make it happen that way. You want to do a video, do a video of it. All the reenactments, they do Civil War reenactments left and right all over the
Yes, very
certainly.
disturbing sometimes, actually. Yeah, but you're absolutely right, because there are different types of learners, and I am a professional development trainer as well. So you have the auditory learners, you have the visual learners, you have the analytical kind of people, abstract learners. So you're right.
Yeah.
You know, we can provide this. We have to be creative, especially considering what we're going up against, right?
Yeah.
Because the enemy uses creativity in some very disturbing ways.
But think of it as being duty bound. And there's glory there, which is one of the reasons why I love Amy Jacques Garvey. This is a woman who was so selfless, but she was duty bound. Messed up eye, less than 100 pounds. This woman was duty bound. We were no longer duty bound, to our community, not even to our families. People will divorce you in a second. You look at all the lists. They're like, oh, I got a million lists of this and that. you don't qualify. Next. There's no duty. Yes, you want to, yes, left and right. So the idea of duty as part of our womanhood, as part of our sisterhood, is still very, very important. And I think we need to talk about that a lot more, especially as our world is changing. We can't even answer the question, what is a woman anymore, without it being politically offensive to some people. So we have to reclaim the glory that is being a woman, and just kind of get another, get realigned, get realigned. We are still duty bound, even a perp. Who did they call for? They called for mom. Who did George Floyd call for? He called for his mother. Everybody in their most needed hour will either call for God or they'll call for their mother. So you can't take that away from us. You can't take that away from us. You can't subjugate it. You can't disrespect it. We have a history of disrespect against womanhood, especially towards Black women. We have carried the brunt of that, and we are still carrying the brunt of it. And a lot of that is coming from our Black men, who co-sign some of this treatment. You'll see a lot of young Black men go online and talk about, I don't date Black women. Well, if you don't date Black women, why do you need to announce that? Knowing, unless you just walked out of the womb, a grown up, and you don't know much, right? But if you know the history of this world, why would you say those things? Why would you say those things, considering the historical trauma that it comes with? Even if you can date and love whoever you want, but why do you want to raise a flag and diminish a Black woman after all she has done in this world? For you to even be here, Black man, how do you think you showed up? That's so there's something wrong when they're coming after us, and it's unfortunate. It's very tragic to me.
Yeah, and I think where we're missing is the channels, right? Because there's a reason why there are these constant images, these disparaging images of embarrassing even images of Black women caricatures that we constantly see on television, even to the point where very wealthy, educated, powerful white people are consistently showing Black youth that we will make space for you if you pull your pants down live on television. We'll give you one of our former dead president's flutes to play. We'll let you do that on live television. And if you put yourself in bondage and pretend to be having sex with objects, we will make you a doctor from Harvard University, honorary doctor. We will award you with, so what the children aren't stupid. They see what's being rewarded. And they also see what happens to people like you and I who are doing the divine work of trying to uplift our people, that we essentially oftentimes get ignored, that there is no glory in the way that there is glory, good or bad, attention, right? And so these channels, it's almost like we're missing each other, because when these young Black men are making these statements, they're not talking about you and I, women who clearly love them, who honor ourselves and who love our culture. They're missing us. We don't even exist in the market, right? They're talking about a specific type of persona, and they feel justified in doing it. They actually feel embarrassed and humiliated, which is kind of ironic, because a lot of the avenues that created the pathway for the young ladies to behave that way, they were taught by the young men who said, yeah, I'm a dog, so you be a, right? If I'm a dog and I'm a male, that means you my girl, right? So you're going to be a dog too, or we going to call a female dog, right? So these girls, or some of them from our generation, went along with what they thought that the brothers wanted. But the brothers weren't completely honest with them. They were using them as a object to achieve a specific goal. And that's not what they wanted in a wife, as you can see from some of our most prestigious rappers who laid the game for what it was to be wanted in some of these rap circles, right? You had to have this type of body. You had to be willing to show it. You needed to be providing sex when we want it, where we want it, how we want it. Don't give us no problems. You want to be in this circle. Right. When they wanted, they weren't completely honest with the baby girls. They didn't tell them, this is what we're doing to establish ourselves on our careers. But once we establish that, we're really going to convert ourselves to family actors and do TV movies that are targeted towards white kids and become, Ice Cube. We're going to become household family symbols, and we're going to want real women, decent women after that, right? So they're not being completely honest with our daughters. And so our daughters, they're like, oh, okay, we want to be with Black men. We want to be with powerful Black men. We want to be with popular Black men. And so they want twerking, we're going to give them twerking. They want thongs, we're going to give them thongs. We gave them, our daughters, we gave them what they asked for. And then they flip the script on us and become repulsed by the very thing that they demanded from us, right? We don't want no hoes. Like, wait a minute. You literally, you said you don't want love. You want to hit it and quit it. Okay, we want to be with you, so we're going to go along with that. We're with it. They lied to us, because when they're ready to get married, they got to go to another culture where they can see women. They can see femininity and beauty and modesty. These are the same rappers who told us to stop, drop, and roll, to howl like a dog, to get on all fours. These are real family men now in their 40s. These are guys, they want to do movies with Disney, and they want to engage in politics. They want to have decent conversations about moving our people forward. They don't want the hoes that they created. So somebody's got to be honest with our babies. They're not being completely honest.
And I think it's fine to change. I think change is inevitable. I think they should change. It's okay to evolve. If you used to think one way, if you were talking about, drop it like it's hot or whatever, and you don't like that now, I think that's okay.
But the problem is they won't evolve the women that they reduced to dogs with them.
We don't need, the women don't need a man's permission to evolve. They can change. We can all.
But what I'm saying is the damage has been done, right? And so there's an unfair dichotomy, because while brothers can shift seamlessly from unrighteousness to righteousness, from poor to rich, from unclean to clean, they're not willing to move sisters from that space as easily. Can you imagine the sister who now goes by, she's almost stigmatized forever as, what is it, Deep Throat? What was the sister's name who did the book, The Tell All? I mean, she's going to be that forever.
The video vixen girl.
Video vixen. Yeah, she's not leaving that. So that's the unfairness of it. When the sisters get in that lane, they don't get to move out of it as seamlessly as, let's say, Ice Cube gets to move from being, whatever that was during that time, to being the family guy that he is today. He didn't bring all those daughters and sisters with him. Snoop didn't bring the women from the videos with him into suburbia. Stay right
Yeah.
there. They're stuck. They're drug addicts. Some of them are, pole dancers. They have had to create a space that they either become maniacs, drug addicts, or they just go deep, deep, deep into the world that was carved out for them by those brothers. They don't
They,
get to become righteous marriage
yeah.
material.
Yes, they've certainly have been left behind, and that is directly connected to our value system in the United States. What do we value? I mean, there's a lot of argument that a lot of Black folks see their value in being accepted by the white people. That's and so when they do to them, and this is again pathological, and it's been studied and whatnot, but once it seems like once certain African American men reach a certain place in their lives, once they can come out of whatever they were in, they go to a white woman. They don't reach for women that look like us. They're not bringing baby girl with them, like you said. They're absolutely not, because that's not what has been taught to. That's not a valuable thing. Which is why when we look at Black love, like these long-lasting Black relationships, like Denzel Washington and his wife, or all these other people, Papoose and Remy Ma. When you look at those guys, we're like, oh my God, Black love is so special. But that's very rare, because what we tend to look at what's valuable and what's is when you move out of your bad situation and that good situation. That's when you're in the white household, when you have the so-called white family. That it seems like every
Yes. They're not.
every enslaved person wants to come from the field into the house.
Yes. Sisters,
But they're not taking the
sisters
sisters with them. And
the sisters don't get that same freedom pass to journey, so they have to carve out a space. They become very angry, and some, because they got so much divine God in them, even though they have been so abused and have reduced themselves. What they do is they carve out an even crazier space for themselves, and it looks like sex toy games and pornography and all of these things, but they do not get to move from video vixen into beautiful, loving housewife with young Jot. I think I see some women in the audience. Some might marry. He was lying when he did that song. I remember when that song came out, I was like, yeah, I see some brother. Okay, so they're gonna marry them girls. No. You see what he's married to? Right, and Jock, they're look at even the beloved, all of them, like they're not being honest with the baby girls, and it's our job.
Even I believe even was Dr. Julius Garvey, was he not also married, or is he not also married to a white woman? Am I wrong? But to I mean, I have to say, fair disclosure, my father is a white man. Okay, my mother is Black. My father is a white man. I am a Black woman. I've been in a very African experience, thanks to my mother. But my father has also been a part of my culture. So he speaks my tribal language and everything. So you want to love who you love who you love, But in my coming out of, in my unlearning and in my relearning of the world around me, I'm just a different person, and I see the world differently now. I'm no longer afraid of being a Black woman, which I grew up with, feeling some kind of way. I felt like I couldn't really be Black safely. There always seems to be an issue, with my Blackness and just the world that I was being raised in. I even I had like a chip on my shoulder about it, but then I finally had to unlearn and then relearn and really become the Black woman, a proud Black woman that I am today. It's such a big deal to me. It's a big deal to me. So I support who am I to judge? I don't want to judge anybody. However, I do believe that it's very important that we encourage Black love, and that we encourage Black unity, and that we encourage our young people to look for partners within their own community, and help build our culture in a way that we deserve. I really do believe that. But somebody mentioned, Dr. Julius Garvey being, his, and there seemed to have been a little, uncomfortableness with that, but to each their own. I'm so sorry. I left you speechless. No judgment. No judgment. I love me some Dr. Julius Garvey. I had the pleasure of meeting him, of talking with him. I think he's a treasure, a national treasure. I think what he brings to the table is very important. But we do have to address that elephant in the room. Even when we look at the other Supreme Court Justice, Thomas. He also has an interesting story, and Senator Tim Scott has an interesting story as well. So it takes a whole bunch of us to make up this Black culture, this Blackness that we share. And so it's just an interesting thing. But what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I have so many thoughts. So many thoughts. As a mother, as someone who's very sensitive to the woman that I love so much, Mother Amy Euphemia Jakes Garvey.
Who was also mixed race. Her father is also white.
No, not her father. Not her father. Her mother's father.
Okay, I see. But she's also of mixed heritage, mixed race, I should say.
Black people didn't have all of these complicated concerns, especially during slavery. You were either Black or you were white, right? You were either Black or you were white, and only in the context of division were these delineations made as a tool for divisiveness and control. But for the most part, the Black woman and the Black man understood that their circumstances produced a new product, right? And that new thing, whether it was the result of rape, which is always rape whenever you're an enslaved person cannot consent because of the fact that they are an enslaved person, right? So even what appeared to be consensual relationships were not, they were the equivalent of statutory rape, right? And so people did what was necessary to survive. But our ancestors were very clear that you were Black or you were white. It didn't matter what complexion you were or how circumstances unfolded to produce you. So, like Brother Adam Clayton Powell said, whether you were marshmallow white or charcoal Black, we had it all in our race. There's really no need to go outside of it because we had so many expressions of the Ma'afa manifested in our bodies. But we understood that we were a soulful people, that we were bound together by our Africanness, whether that was indigenousness, if you prefer to use that term. And there was something divine in that, regardless of the circumstances of our skin tone. And so in terms of relationship with Dr. Julius Garvey, right? I am sensitive to Mother Amy Euphemia Jakes Garvey. That was her son. That is her son.
Her son,
yeah, that is her son. And I'm sure you can read her writings to see her position on interracial relationships. We do not have to guess it. In the speech that I gave, Women as Leaders, she was for the proliferation of the African race. And so you don't have to do a too deep digging to see that might have hurt her, right? But I understand too that it is very difficult to be a child of Malcolm X or a child of Martin Luther King Jr., and definitely to have been a child of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey under the challenges that they were under. And so I'm not purporting to think for anybody or understand their motivations, but I will say that he is a very important person to Mother Amy Euphemia Jakes Garvey. And I'm sure he is equally an important person to the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And therefore, I will be remiss if I didn't say he was not an equally important person to me, and his feelings are something that we need to be mindful of. His spirit, he is a spiritual being, he is a human being, and he is in a very unique position that we can't possibly understand what motivates and what drives him, whatever that is. And so I will say with compassion as a mother that we love that king. We wish nothing but the best for that king and for the offspring that he has created. And we will do our best to continue the genetic legacy of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey through that family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but like I said, Amy Jacques Garvey was also of mixed heritage, and so and if you even look at the American makeup and whatnot, you can't do a DNA test and not see a mixture of different cultures, ethnicities. I bet if even you were to take an ancestry DNA test, I'm sure you would probably be surprised at your makeup, and how much you would be surprised.
No,
I was surprised.
It's clear, even without doing a DNA test, it's clear that many African Americans have had their genetic pool diluted.
Yeah,
as a result of being in bondage in this country. Yeah,
but even Native Americans, even the Native American part too, there's a big Native American influence, because when escaped people would run away, they would get together with natives, and even Native Americans had enslaved people at one point themselves. The Seminole Indians were a mixture of Black folks and Indians who came together and created their own tribe, the Seminole tribes, and they went down to Florida, to hide from their enemies. So we're all very mixed. We are all very, very mixed people. But
and the Honorable Marcus Mosiah talked about that, and he said, "Listen, we have, by circumstances, been turned into a very diverse group of people. But even with that diversity amongst us, we can still marry into ourselves and create our own powerful empire related to this concept of global African power, freedom, liberation, and economy." So wherever we are, it is important that we build relationship with who we are as we are right now and create the world that we want to see with ourselves. And we can still do that. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that's a perfect note to end on is that's perfect. Just creating the world that we see ourselves in, prospering in, living well in. One of my favorite sayings, and he's my favorite master teacher, is Dr. Clark, Dr. John Henrik Clark. He is a teacher of all teachers. I absolutely adore him. But one of the things that he consistently said was that we all deserve to feel good in the world, everybody. And that's one of my favorite phrases. I use that regularly because I think we do. And it's time that we come together and start to deliberately create these spaces where we can all feel good in them, wherever you come from. Because, like Donna Malaya said earlier, we ain't getting out of this alive. So we'll get along.
There was a piece that Mother Amy wrote about on race. Mother Amy wrote about race in one of her articles in the 1920s. And she was speaking to this issue of race and the hierarchy of races and loving our Blackness. And she said, this is, I think, a great way to end it. She said, God is a spirit, but when he is visualized by Negroes, he takes on the form of a Black man. For in the worship of God who looks like us, as Black people, being satisfied with our type, we become proud of our race, grateful to our Creator, and the impetus grows in us to carry out the divine injunction. Ye are the lords of creation.
Amen. Every time, it gets me every time. I almost want to salute and stand at attention. It's
Yes,
such a
let's
powerful.
let Amy have the last word on that.
Oh, it's beautiful. Thank you so much, Sheila. Thank you for always delivering. I'll look forward to doing this for you again. Maybe we'll do a show together or something. I'm working on something we could do on the regular because I think it'd be absolutely great. So I'm duty bound. I know you are duty bound to it as well, and so let's make a difference together. And I'm just truly grateful for all you do. And thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, beloved. And I'm going to send you some information about the Million Woman World March taking place in October of this year. Empress Chi, I think you are familiar with her, Dr. Phyliss, the founder of the 1997 Million Woman March, is at it again. And it's going to be powerful in multiple countries, multiple continents. And it's something that we need to know about. So I'll get you some information on that too. Hopefully you can do an interview with her.
Oh, that would be great. That would be fantastic. I really appreciate it. And I want to thank all of you all for joining me today. Thank you for sharing some of your afternoon with me. It's always a pleasure, and I'm truly grateful for you and taking your time and joining us. So thank you. I'm Jeanette Lenoir with E Pluribus America, and this is Our American Culture.